Honorable Council Member Carmelita Gomes.
Present.
Honorable
Presentation. And the last week we had the first public hearing for giving the opportunity to the public to have an input in our budget, 2020 budget. This is our final public hearing. After this public hearing, the council will have an opportunity of adopting the budget previously. The page here is just to give us a summary of what is required from the state for each and every government. That each government should establish a fiscal year, and the fiscal year for City South Fulton is from October 1 through September 30th. And each municipality should prepare a budget. And it was prepared, the city manager presented the budget to the mayor and the city council. The public were notified that the budget was available, as it is now is online, and what you are having or what is going to be adopted today is not exactly what is online. What is online is what was originally submitted. There have been multiple changes, a lot of changes that have taken place. And those changes up to today, this afternoon, we are making those changes to make sure that the people's concern or inputs have been accommodated. Conduct a public hearing. So far, this is the second public hearing. Then adopt the budget. After the adoption of budget during the course of the year, there will be multiple amendments. Amendments will be there if there are more revenues coming in or there's less revenue. So the budget can go up or can go down. But at all times, the budget has to be balanced. Balanced budget means that revenues equal to expenses. If you don't have enough revenues, how much you may have expenses, you have to reduce your expenses so that the budget is always in balance. That's the requirement of local government. And this one is to say the proposed budget that is before you is $101,912,402. Those are revenues. Revenues dictate how much expenses you may have. So if you have those revenues, the expenses will be the same. And this is the all funds. You have different funds that we are going to see. So that's the total one. And these are the funds that we are talking about. You have general fund that is $73 million. Then you have Old America that has no revenues. You have doesn't have revenues. You have restricted funds that are from grants. That's you have $4.1 million. Hotel motel is 240. You have TIS Plus, $17 million. Capital projects, $9.4 million. And solid waste is projected to bring in $560,000 for a total of 105,212,402. These are revenues. These revenues will support these expenses. So you will see general fund here $73 million, but expenses will be $67 million because general fund has to support the $10 million, $10,000 for Old America that has no revenues. It has also to support $1.9 million for E911. Then we have the $4.1 million for different grants that we have. $240,000 is for hotel motel. So it's in, it's out. Then we have TIS Plus, $17 million equivalent to expenses revenues of $17.5 million. Then you have capital projects, $1.1 million. This one will come from general fund. Then you have solid waste, $560. Then we're expecting to pay debt because capital projects, all capital projects will be funded by debt that we're going to get. So annual debt will be approximately $957,000 for a total of $104,412,402. That gives us a shortfall or a surplus of $1.5 million. that $1.5 million is not allocated to any expenditure. We are taking that to put it in reserve so it can reduce our fund balance, which we'll be talking about. So if you add that $1.5 million plus 1.4, it comes up to $105,912,402, which is equivalent to revenues up there. So it's a balanced budget. It has to balance all the time. General fund proposal revenues. Where is the money coming from general fund? 87% of general fund comes from tax. That's different taxes that we have. And this one is property tax, loss, and franchise tax, 87%. Then you have 5% is coming from licenses, different business licenses, which is about $3.9 million. You have fines and forfeitures, $340,000. Charges for services, different services that we have, be it parks and recs, fingerprinting, you name them, it's 1%. Then you have other finance sources, 6%. That's from different IGA agreements that we have with other municipalities. So that's 100%, 73, 821, 952. That's general fund. General fund expenditure. Where do our taxpayers' money go? So this is the places where your tax money go. This is where your money is spent. 2.4% of your fund is going to registration. Then you have 4.4% of your tax money is going to general service. We may call it administration. Then you have general and admin. That's finance, human resources, IT, internal services. It's 9.5%. Community development and economic development, you have 8%. And you have judicial, 1.4%. The bulk of your money goes to public safety as it is with any other municipality. Fire, police, and E911, it takes up 45.3%. Parks and recreation is 7%. 1.3% goes to debt services, that's the 957. Then 2.3% goes to capital projects. 16.8% goes to public works. All public works activities, roads, this and that, is 16.8%. And 1.5% that goes to other financing uses. 100%, and it totals up to $72 million. That's your general fund. 73, but 73, remember there's $1.5 million that goes for reserve. Which 12? 12 million, that's public works. Yes, ma'am. So I was talking more of percentages, but here's the amount. That's 12.1 million goes to public works.
Mr. Mayor, point of order. So this don't reflect that, right? So that's why everybody's confused.
Oh, okay.
Because this don't reflect what you have on the screen.
What you have on the screen is.
Can you go back, please?
So what is the difference in the figures?
Which one?
72.
72 and 73 we have.
All the expenditures.
They are all expenditures. Here are all expenses.
Right, but what the mayor is saying is the difference between the 73, 321, it's a $1 million difference.
But the $1 million goes to contingency.
Okay.
It goes to contingency, which will go to there. We have $2.6 million that has put aside. We have contingency in case of anything should happen. We have $1 million put aside. Then we have $1.5 million put aside for reserve. That will try to help our negative fund balance.
So can you put a footnote?
Yes.
Okay. I think that's what.
It will come. Yeah. It will come at the end of the.
I understand it now.
Yes. Proposed capital investments. is where your capital investment, the $11.1 million is going. Community development is having $76,000. You have general services, $149,000. General services is not attributed to any particular department, it's for the whole city. Then you have $373,000, that's for information technology. Fire is getting $2.5 million. Parks and Recreation is getting $4.7 million. Police is getting $1.1 million. And transportation, that's public works, it's getting $2 million for a total of $11.1 million. This is the same breakdown that Parks and Recreation is 42%, and you have fire is 23% of the total capital. You have general services 2%, community development another 1%, transportation 19%, and police 11%. Proposed capital funding, where do we get money for funding the capital projects that we have talked about? These are sources. We have 15%, which is $1.6 million will come from general fund. We are going to borrow that to fund things that will not be on other means of funding, which we are going to talk about. The next one, funding, we are going to fund through URA, that's Urban Redevelopment Authority. $7 million, which is 63%, will come from there. So anything that do not qualify, does not qualify to be funded from here will be on the $1.6 million. Then we have other loans completely for, these are specifically for public works. $2 million will go for public works. Several projects, including sidewalks, street lights, will be only $2 million. Then we have $380,000, that's cash at hand. We have that money that goes directly to fire for a total of $11.1 million, Dr. Rao.
So the loan amount, is that the pool of money that we talked about having available for public works to do those projects to cycle through?
Yes, they are there, but I think as we go by, the Public Works Director will give us some details of what type of projects. But that's the money, because we can't find it from URA.
Right.
We have to find other means of borrowing.
It might be helpful to clarify that that's that pool of funds, because when I was looking at it, I didn't recognize that until you spoke to it.
So the $2.2 million is part of the general fund. It's funded by general fund. The money will come from our taxpayers. Everything comes from our taxpayers. But that is specifically for public works. All public works job will come from here.
Are you taking questions now? Are we doing that?
Well, we're doing it. There will be a public hearing.
T-Splats will be coming. Actually, I've passed T-Splats. I have passed that one.
May I just explain to you guys, we're going to go through his presentation, then we'll have the public hearing. I'll open it up to that, where you'll be able to make your comments. At the close of the public hearing, the body here will make a decision on the budget and ask questions, okay? You got that?
Yeah, I just wonder if it might be helpful for us to ask questions before public comment, because we might be able to clarify.
There might be. What does the body feel?
Yeah, it's some confusion there, because like if our document don't reflect what's on the screen.
Well, let's do this. Let's have the presentation. Let's have our questions, and then we'll open up for public comment. But there's a lot of things. You said what Jack wants to say? Yeah, I know. Go ahead.
Before you leave that last frame, it might be good to highlight that $12 million that you talked about for public works includes general services as well. Typically, when you speak to it, you separate the two. But I think that might have confused folks as well, that 12 million for public works is also inclusive of general service.
Can you go back to that
I
slide?
have clarification.
Let's do this. Let's get through it, and then we'll.
Can you go back to that slide?
Which one? This one?
Right.
No, they're not. Can we go,
Which slide did you want?
This is what we're going to do. I want you to go through your presentation, and you all jot your questions down that you have, and then we'll come back to the slide.
This is another source of fund. It's the same one that was being graphed, but here it's just putting in different types of graphs. That general fund that we are going to borrow is $1.6 million. $7 million will come from URA funding. And loan, we are going to get it, $2 million. Then you have 380, that's cash we already have. Here is the summary of all the funds that we have. I want you to listen to this one because I think during last presentation some had misunderstanding about there is a shortfall or we are negative. The fund, the budget has not balanced. The budget has always to balance. But at the end of the balanced budget, there is information that I want you to understand clearly. This one last time was $7.7 million. Now it has come to 6.2. You need to know what it is. It's negative. But I will get into there. On the right-hand, left-hand side is general fund, which we have already talked about. You have revenues of $73 million, and then you have expenses of $73 million. So at the beginning of the year for general funds, we had $6.3 million because of the revenue that we had, that we're expecting. At the end of this fiscal year, we may have some savings of $871. When you add, you move that one from there, you have about 63. Out of 63, you have revenues here. But those revenues will reduce to have a negative balance of $6.2 million. This negative is an accumulative that started with us when we started in 2017. This has nothing to do with the 2020 budget, but it's an accumulative that we have not taken out of it. The budget is always balanced. But as we went through 2017, 2018, we increased our expenses more than we had our revenues. So if we can't take care of those expenses, we will have that negative will be there. But it has nothing to do with the balanced budget. It will always balance, but it has limitations. If we have that negative, we will be limited to borrow. We will be limited to do some other things. So negative, we have to clear that. We may not clear it in 1 year. It's almost impossible. But as we go, we need to see our spending. You can't spend what you don't have. We have to be fiscally responsible, and we have to make use of the ordinance that we passed, that we have planned, that in 3 years, in 4 years, we have to wipe that one out. And that's we are working towards that. So with that $7.7 million we presented last time, we had to go out. The city manager, the CFO, we had to sit down and make some cuts. So we moved from $7.7 million negative to come to $6.2 million. There are still some means and ways of what we are going to implement come October 1 to make sure that our expenses are under control. But there's no way out you can pay the whole of that one in 1 year. The plan is to have that one phased out in 3 years. And we can only do that if we control our spending. We spend what we know we are going to have revenue to be supported with. With that, that's the end of the public hearing presentation. I'll give it back to the mayor how he wants it to be handled.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr.
So we're at a point now where we're going to be able to ask questions. So my first comment is that I still think that we have not allocated enough to the fund balance. That I just think that we could, I think that we could allocate more to reducing. And I agree that it will take 3 years, approximately 3 years, if we do 2.5 a year or something. But I still think that we can do more, because I think we can cut more. So I went through the entire budget, and one of my big concerns is talking with the city attorney, and we had a conversation with the city attorney about the budget and what her budget needs are, and her current budget is not very much different than the budget this year. And so the additional money needs to go into that budget. Number two, there are various areas like the election that we're going to have is upcoming, that have cost us about $130,000. Is that just for the November election? Is there just one election that we will have during our upcoming fiscal year? Because I saw that it was cut down from 1/3, so there's only one.
So the only one, and I think we resolved that that money that is remaining, actually when it's there 530,000.
Right.
So from 530 we removed 200,000 because they will not need the excess money. So we had to do that with the clerk's office, and they gave us a go-ahead. Actually, it came from them. So the money that is there for them is enough.
Okay. So then, and then I went to part of my department, and I think that even though we do have a balanced budget, and even though we do have a deficit, a fund balance deficit, I think that we should only be hiring critical positions. And so one of the things that we did not do was to hardly cut any positions. And so that concerns me. And when I say cut positions, I don't mean people that are currently in positions, I mean the requests for new positions. There are 2 positions in the city manager's office that I think should be cut. In procurement, they were asking for 2 additional, maybe they only need 1. These are just suggestions that I'm just making. And not knowing, so let me finish, not knowing exactly what's going on in the departments. I thought that I had a conversation with someone who said GIS was going to go under IT, but in this document, it's not under IT, it's still where it was. It's not today, but I know. And in addition to that, Public Works, when I looked at Public Works earlier, the budget was $7.5 million, and now it's $12 million, and I went to General Services, which was already $4 million, so I don't understand what the additional is that was added to Public Works, and it was $12 million. I can't tell whether or not permitting was transferred back to community development. I can't tell whether it was. And it looks like code enforcement might not have gone back, but I'm not sure.
It says where it is.
It says where it is, okay. So with all of these, and maybe it has a lot to do with, this must be the 5th or 6th budget I've looked at, you know, and then I'm going to this one and this one and this one and trying to compare all of them, and there's all the different numbers. And I understand must have been a real challenge to try to come up with all of these cuts. But I'm just concerned, and it's just not good enough.
So I will try to address some of those ones, but I will leave the city manager to comment anywhere else. I will leave it. In procurement, there is no request for employee in for next coming fiscal year. So there's no one in procurement. There's no headcount for procurement. In the city managers, procurement, how do you see?
In contracts and procurement, there is a procurement officer and a purchasing manager.
They are already there now. There are only 3 people in procurement, and all of them are there. There's none of 2020. In the city manager's budget, I think we already had 1 person. GIS is going to IT. And you talk about why some of these are still there. So yesterday, the day before Monday, we spent the whole day working on this. Yesterday, the whole day, staff has been working across the clock. So even some are there. The bottom line is there's no extra or overage. So we will be moving. Departments will be moving. Those ones that we budgeted, code enforcement, we budgeted police, we have to bring them back. So we didn't have enough time, as you see, that I had to send you this budget this afternoon, because throughout the morning they have been working, and they'll still be working, depending on wherever you go, they'll still be working, but all those changes will be done before the budget is published.
So my last comment is definitely too much money in the professional line for community development and regulatory affairs. It is something like $800-something thousand. It just went up really, really high. I don't know why. I don't know what's in it. I know that there was conversation about another attorney. I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but I know it's too high. So that's my last comment.
Mr. Donner?
Yeah, so I think there's probably just a little confusion there. That's actually the Charles Abbott contract. Remember, if you
I was told
move,
that we didn't have it anymore.
excuse me?
I was told we didn't have it anymore.
We do, yes ma'am. So we produced more revenue year after year on that contract than projected. So at a mid-year budget adjustment, the majority of those adjustments is because we have projected, let's say, $1 million in revenue off that contract, but they've exceeded it. And so just like you have to make a budget adjustment when you have additional expenses, you have to do the same when you have revenue. And so that contract has actually been one that has outperformed expectations within the budget year. We actually are going to have to make those adjustments at the end of this year as well, because there's so much building activity that we're receiving additional revenue. Additionally, last year, we adjusted that contract because we did not feel like the split was equitable. Charles Abbott, I believe, was getting 60% and we were getting 40%. And so we reversed that, and our revenues have kind of skyrocketed off of that. And so when we moved permits back under, as the council requested, to CDRA, we also had to move that contract. So that is the increase in professional services that you see there.
So I just think that it would really be helpful as you make changes, when you do a justification for why the change is made, then you understand, because there's an explanation there. So,
Yes, ma'am.
so that would be really, really helpful.
You may not have had a chance to check it out yesterday, but the detailed memo that I provided to the council, yeah, and so some of those items are in there. And so I know you asked a few detailed questions. If it helps the council, I can go through a list of those changes, and it might curb some of those questions and also edify the public on what type of adjustments we've made for that $2.6 million.
How do we do that?
Okay, I can go through it. And so, would that be helpful?
Yeah, I read it, but it might be,
Understood. So the adjustments that we made, the city has about $105 million budget. It is that, what that tells you first, I think is really important, is that the expected revenues are at $105 million. And so you have to balance both. That our budget includes those areas. I kind of heard people in the crowd asking about T-SPLOST, and some of the other funds that are included in our budget beyond the general budget. So all of those numbers are included in the overall $105 million in revenues. In addition to that, you have to have the actual expenditures that match that. And so I think what the CFO was highlighting is that our budget deficit is because some of those expected revenues were not realized. And so we carried that debt into this year. And so it is the goal of the city to reduce that debt through our budget and expenditures. Without going back through his presentation fully, what we have done is outperformed those areas. So our expected revenues were reduced, I believe, by about 10%, but we have under expended our fund by about 21%. That's why the city has about a $10 million surplus that we carry forward to pay our bills. As we look at the FY20 budget, we saw that if we kept our expenditures as high as they were, we would not eat into that debt. And so we have decided to cut operations. To make it very simple, if you carry $1,500 a month in household bills and you bring in $1,500 a month, then you're basically check to check. And the city has a surplus that if emergencies come up or if things happen, then we use that to pay additional bills. That's your rainy day fund. And so our rainy day fund was not high enough based on the will of the council. As such, we've reduced our expenditures and increased our rainy day fund. And so those cuts, and there are a myriad of those, but they did not cut positions because the bulk, one, the council is in favor or has expressed the will to have less contractual services and more opportunities for full-time employees delivering the services, so you have more control over what is delivered. That's been consistent with the city because about 70% of our general fund expenses go to payroll. So that means it's staff and not contractors. To continue that trend, for the clerk's office, we removed $200,000. The reason for that is because Fulton County estimated the cost of the elections. Now that we have the real cost of the elections, as you can imagine, they're coming up in November, and our fiscal year starts in October. We used that number initially. We've now reduced it down to the actual number. So it doesn't hurt the clerk's office, but we just reduced that number to pay the real cost of the elections, which has a total area of about $230,000. That other $30,000 is because based on our interactions with Fulton County, we have been renting space from them to hold our meetings. We moved that $30,000 to Public Works General Services because that department is the right place to pay for it. We removed a total of $112,000 from the city manager's office. The reason for that is because we provide an activity or multiple activities for staff engagement. We're going to partner closer with HR so that we don't have a duplication of services and pass that savings on to the taxpayers. In addition to that, we removed our ICMA fellow position, and so at the end of that person's term, they would just move into a full-time position, so we made sure there was no duplication in that area as well. So that's a total reduction of $112,000. In addition to that, from the finance department, we reduced the cost. We have the actual cost for the professional audit as well as various financial contingencies. So they took a cut of about $93,000, we'll call it $94,000. Our contracts and procurement removed a total of $70,000 from their activities because their hospitality activities were reduced, and a study that we were expecting for them to interact based on the council's desire to have more local businesses involved in the city is going to cost less than we thought because we'll likely be partnering with a university like Georgia State, Georgia Tech, and some of those others. And when you do that, you can direct contract and get a lower cost. We also have reduced the IT budget by $8,100, and the reason for that is because their staff is set now, and so they can do group training, so we'll save those funds and also pass that cost on to the residents. Very similar to human resources, we've actually implemented a class and compensation study, and so the funds associated with that we removed from the budget because we don't have to carry that forward into this year. We removed $38,000 for communications, and the reason for that is because the city manager's office is going to provide that additional support to them through a combination of contractual services, one-off purchases, and things of that nature for everything that you would see around elections, the census, and all of those activities. From general services, they took one of the larger cuts. It's around $462,000. But the reason for that is because we have a shared services model where all of the departments pay their equal share. So when we're purchasing gas from police, fire, community development, and others, they all will be purchasing it centralized. And as you can imagine, when you buy gasoline in bulk, you get it reduced. It's the same thing for all of the purchases that they would make, which is why we implemented shared services. We also have a $173,000 cut from police. While those appear as cuts in the budget, the reason that we cut them is because there have been duplications. So every single line item under public safety, whether it be police or fire, they received an increase from the year before, but the reduction is the proposed budget that we passed to council. And so just to explain that better, if there were 50 officers last year, they still go up to 75 officers, but if they may have asked for 110. And so it's not that they got a reduction. We have way more officers than that. I'm just using around. But the purpose of that is that there is no reduction in every area. There have been increases, but again, we proposed extremely high increases, and in this budget, we've made them more reasonable. The other thing with police, to just highlight one, no area of personnel was cut, but those reductions, as the council has received this memo, but in 5 areas, there were incorrect data entries that added up to the bulk of those cuts. So they really did not receive any cut. There was just duplication in their budget. In fire, it is the exact same thing, except for we did reduce, there were 110,000 in transcription issues. Again, that's incorrect data entry. So they actually received increases in every area, and the only thing that was reduced was duplication. For Parks and Recreation, there was a total of $296,000 removed. Those cuts are park staff was requesting to bring certain services in-house, so it would cost more, but we have invested quite a bit of money into a parks master plan, and so it is more prudent financially to wait until this master plan is developed to tell us how we're going to move forward in our Parks and Recreation service model. And so these reductions are because you can't make those types of changes before the plan comes out, and the plan does not come out until the end. For Public Works, there was a increase because they did not actually have the appropriate total for their contracts included in their budget. And so, Mr. Malazi, I don't remember what that was, but I guess there was a transcription issue, and for the Jacobs contract, they had the wrong number in there, so they corrected it. Yes, ma'am, I'm sorry.
I just want to ask, does anyone have a copy of that other than you?
So it was provided to the council to educate them on these cuts yesterday, but what we can do is include it in the record and make it public. That's what we normally do, and so let me clarify that too. The reason we've done it that way is because during the budget, there is nothing official until one is transmitted from the city manager to council. That's online right now. These proposed cuts, I think Councilmember Gilliard mentioned it a couple of times. This is probably the 10th iteration of what we would call budget negotiations. And so this information will likely change once they raise their hands to vote or make suggestions on where money should go. So what we wanted to do is, since you haven't received this and there appear to be questions, I'm just going through the changes so you can understand the reasoning and the adjustments that the city treasurer put online.
I would ask that the public direct the question down for public comment so we can move this
And what we can try to do, Mayor, I mean, I don't know, some of our administrative staff is left for the day, but I don't mind once we finish this, just going and making some copies so people can see all of these changes. And if that's helpful, we'll make sure to get it to you.
I think that's good.
Okay.
Okay, Ms. Brooks?
Mr. Mayor, I want to make a couple of motions because we asked the city manager, and thank you, Mr.
I'm gonna go and do that real quick.
Okay.
We'll get started.
Oh, thank you for the thorough explanation. But because there's been, like you just stated, 10 iterations of this budget, and certain things we requested to be moved, certain operations we requested to be moved has not been reflected. I want to go ahead and make some motions, and then so we can get it on the record. And that is also what the attorney is suggesting that we do.
And to the attorney, your kind that all of this is within the realm of this meeting.
So
These are organization changes.
yeah, so pretty much everything we're talking about deals with your position, the organization, and
Okay, just
your
for the
funding.
record, we'll make sure.
So you can make that motion during the
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so the first motion I would like to make is I move for GIS to be moved to IT.
Properly moved to second discussion. I did see Mr. Khalid and Ms. Gunn.
I think, I don't want to fight about it, but I think that a better place for GIS is in CDRA. They're making maps for planning and zoning. I think that both GIS and permits, it just makes more logical sense for them to be under CDRA because that is the, and if someone from GIS is here that can confirm it, but like that is the department that makes most of the requests for the maps.
I would ask too that as we talk to the public, we don't talk to acronyms.
Community development and regulatory affairs, it used to be the planning department.
Mr. Van, want to say something? So I did.
So I guess just to kind of help Councilman Khalid, so is the city manager on your memo, you stated that that is the reason. What is the justification behind moving GIS?
So all of these moves were just kind of for ease of operation and also taking in the will of the council. So the reason we put GIS under the city manager's office is because it supports the entire city. And so I think there was a lot of questions around CDRA versus IT versus wherever. The reason I think we did IT is because it appeared that that was the will of the bulk of the council, but also IT literally services every department in the city. At the same time, under CDRA, I don't think there's a wrong place. Under CDRA, I think the Councilmember Khalid's point, the bulk of the activity does come there, but there is a need from everyone. I think the council could say each one of you have requested a map at one time or another, so it provides maps to you. When we are hosting people who'd like to relocate or expand their business and they want to look at different parts of the city, we use maps for that reason as well. And GIS does some performance-related activities as well. So it's a very broad place. We've seen it in IT in some cities. We've seen it under their community development places in others. And so I think the will of the majority is appropriate in either decision.
Also in your memo, you didn't just mention the GIS manager, you mentioned the GIS analyst. So is that also your recommendation to have that moved as well? In
the same place, yes ma'am. So right now we have one person only, and so we really do, with the demand on GIS, that additional position would probably be considered critical. And so wherever you move GIS, that analyst should follow.
So,
okay, we'll have Ms. Willis investigate.
Yeah, so I'm glad you mentioned that because I did do research on every motion that I'm making and compared it to 11 other cities with the same type of government. And most cities have the GIS function under IT. So I would like to amend my motion to move the GIS function and the GIS analyst position to IT.
Is that okay with Person
She's
second.
gonna say that.
Okay. Okay, let's vote. That's up to you.
Okay, the second motion.
Go ahead.
My second motion is, I would like, I did do research on code enforcement, and I did find a mixture, but, it seems like majority of the council is requesting that code enforcement remain under community development and regulatory services, so I move that code enforcement remain under community development and regulatory services.
Second.
You don't need a motion for that, because
It's
that's
already there.
Okay, because in a proposed budget, another one that I have, it was under police. And so that's why I'm asking, I want to go on record to say it's going to remain.
Well, it's on record because you made it,
I move that code enforcement remains under community development and regulatory affairs.
Properly moved to second. Discussion.
I have some.
Go ahead.
Only question, and you're moving this because of ease of operation, of course, it's already still under there, but are there any cost savings associated with doing this?
Well, no, it will remain the same, and so the operational cost associated with code enforcement remains. And in the memo, I don't know, maybe it wasn't clear, but the recommendation is to leave it where it is, and I believe in the budget that Mr. Malazzi presented, it is already there with all operational costs.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, let's vote. That passes 6-1. You voting again?
Okay.
Oh, okay.
I move,
That makes it.
I'm going to my next motion. I move that, business license, be moved from destination South Fulton, to, community development and regulatory affairs.
There a second?
Second.
Properly moved to second. Discussion. Ms. Guns, and who else do I have?
So, I thought it was permitted.
It is permitted.
So is it business, I thought business license was already.
So as a permit,
Excuse me, she has the floor.
You're asking,
Yeah.
yes.
So the adjustments that we made moved business licensing under finance and permitting back to CDRA.
Right.
And so that's what's in the budget that is presented to you right now.
So I'm in the motion, and I want to go on record to say that business license, when I did research, and most cities were saying that it made business complicated for customers with it being under finance, and they had business license, not under finance, but they had it under community development and regulatory affairs. And so that's my motion for business license to go under
And permitted?
and permitted to go under community development and regulatory affairs.
Still second?
I'm not gonna second.
You withdrawing your second?
Yeah.
Would this include the business
Excuse
license?
me,
Would it
excuse me,
that's
we're
strip
in
mall?
excuse me, we're in the middle of a motion.
Can we have
I will get to you. Yes, sir, what you want to say? But that fails, if no one wants to ask the second.
Okay, my last motion is that we move the CFO role to the city, under the city manager.
Properly moved to second. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor? That passes.
But Mayor, I would like, if we're gonna do it on record, can I make a motion? I'd like to make a motion that we, you said what? I'd like to make a motion that we go ahead and have the permits division move to community development and regulatory affairs.
Second.
Properly moved to second. Discussion. Mr. Khalid.
Yes, before we do any more moving of departments, is someone from finance and community development and regulatory affairs here that would like to speak to how we're moving these departments? I mean, do y'all have, can we ask them if they have anything to say about it? Okay. If no one has, I just wanted to make sure if someone has something to say, it's their department. Okay.
All right. Let's vote. That passes.
Permits.
That passes unanimously.
It wasn't unanimous.
Oh, you didn't vote? I'm sorry, we have one day from, medical.
I'd like to make a motion.
I'm sorry, do we have a speaker's list? Okay.
I'd like to make a motion that we put enough money in the legal line to cover litigation for the attorney, because we know that we need it. So either we vote for it or we don't vote for it. So I would leave it to finance director, the city manager, to find it somewhere, because we already know exactly how much is needed.
Madam Attorney, would that be germane to this budget here?
So what is the current litigation budget?
$600,000.
It just depends on how litigious.
We know we need litigation.
Most of your litigation plans are not someone suing the city, it's you enforcing the rights of your respective jurisdiction.
Right.
So it just depends on how litigious the council
Right.
plans to be over the next year.
So if she's gonna make this motion, I'm assuming, this change, I'm assuming it has to do with the legal line of the budget, right?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay. Your motion, it was second?
I second.
Okay. It's been properly moved to second. Any further discussion, Mr. Khalid?
I didn't hear a number. I think that we probably need to go in executive session and make a number, and it's also going to affect the rest of the budget, so.
That's cool. Yeah, that's good.
I just think we need to hold that until after.
Okay, I gotta move on.
Okay,
Need a motion.
but this is the last one, one more, because we didn't do it. I'll be voting.
He's saying, no, listen. They're saying that it's best to be discussed in executive session so that we come up with a number,
Right.
okay?
So I just want to make a motion.
Was your discussion talking about?
Well, I thought it was a motion on the floor, and so we were in discussion, and then she said we would discuss the number in executive session. And my discussion for that motion that was made is that I don't feel that we should assign blindly any money that she just said she don't know how much the litigation is going to be. And so for us to just arbitrarily, allocate money to something that we don't know how much it's going to cost, I think it's not fiscally responsible of any of us.
Was it physically responsible?
Mr. Mayor, I have the floor.
What was the motion? Was there a motion on the floor?
Yes,
What was the motion?
motion by Gilliard, second by Gums. This money in the legal line for the city attorney. No amount is given.
Let's carry that motion. All those in favor?
We actually supposed to be home, I thought that.
You just have to withdraw your motion.
I withdraw the motion.
Oh,
so
yeah,
we can
there
do
you
it
go.
In executive session.
Okay, that.
Yeah, I'm gonna do the next one.
I have some speakers who are waiting.
Okay, this is real quick.
And how quick is real quick?
This is real quick. I make a motion that business licenses go, or rather stay under the finance department.
It is.
We just voted it.
Oh, I thought we did.
That was real quick. That was real quick. Mr. Khalid, you have the floor. Ms. Jackson, Ms. Jackson, you have the floor.
Yes.
Are you ready? I got you.
You said, okay, 330,000 was allocated for the elections. Okay, so is that including any type of runoff?
Yes, it does include runoff.
Okay, so the actual election is what?
Well, I have to get that. The total amount was 300,000, but they split it into two. So I don't have the exact figure here right now. I can get it.
Okay, now, they've answered the other ones. I need to, city manager, let me ask you a question. I see, you had a request, for the 2020 for 145,000 in, professional. And then, recommended is 260,000. I don't understand. That's 115,000 increase.
So, no, I think they asked for that, so the recommended is what they asked for. the actual lower cost is what I approved.
The 145?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so they have it just the opposite.
What,
I'm looking at this book under city manager saying fiscal year 2020 request, 145,000. Then it says recommended 260,000.
yeah, so I can't answer for the CFO's office, but the dollar amount that is sent is what was in the FY20 proposed. And I don't believe we reduced that number by, I'm sorry, let me pull it up. So the final for the city manager's office for professional was cut to, what is it? You can answer.
When that was requested, but there were some other additional expenses that were there. You said that there are several budgets. So there are several areas you may request, but you find out what other expenses will be there. So the request will not always be the least. The request may be small, but what has been recommended be more.
Well, I want to know what it is.
Oh, I'm sorry, I can go through those different areas. So you know that, and I know we went over this before, but the GMA fees, the implementation of the resolution for
Those
medical.
fees come under education and training, right?
No, not all.
No.
So, yeah, so, though the studies, the printing, and graphic design, all of those activities come out of those professional services line items. In addition to that, the technical support. So when it comes to facilitation, subject matter experts, all of those things are yes, ma'am.
I'm looking at a line item that says technical. I'm looking at a line item that says education and training. I'm looking at a line item that's saying everything that you're saying.
Well,
But I'm
not
looking at this
necessarily.
same separate line item that's saying professional, 145, and it went to 260.
Yes, ma'am. So, again, so technical is one thing, training is another, but GMA, your membership, licenses, dues, fees, all of those things are within those various line items, but the two largest ones are professional and contract services. And so in those line items, so one example is every law that you pass that has to be implemented comes out of there. So I use one example. We recently had a resolution for the expansion of medical services. The first piece was for us to get a white paper. The second piece will happen in 2020, and that is to outsource somebody to do that study. That comes out of there. You have quite a few other laws and ordinances that come out of that as well. So that's what that service is for.
Okay, but the bottom line, it went up 115,000.
I'm assuming so, yes, ma'am.
So you all did that now?
Well, no, it's not a you or
No, I'm
a
just
you.
asking, because you
Well,
said
it's
first you
because
said
it's
one
not
thing,
just
you said
because
something.
it's not just from me. So you've got the assistant city manager, you've got programs and performance, you've got the ICMA role. All of those things are lumped together there. Yeah, it's not just the city manager requesting services.
Ms. Jackson, I have that number for you if you still want it for election.
I did.
Okay, for the November 5th municipal election, the cost to the city of South Fulton is $222,381.84. The estimated cost for a December 3rd runoff would be $101,932.56 for a total of $324,314.46.
All right. Okay, Ms. Law is gone. Mr. Khalid.
First, just to be clear, are we approving this budget tonight?
Yes.
Okay. I thought we were voting on the 24th. Okay.
Everybody did not believe it.
Well, that's good to know.
They just walking
They
out
did what they
here.
wanted to do, man. They
My God, Mr. Khalid, well, to answer the question, we're governed by state mandate, right? Am I correct, Madam Attorney?
Right.
And does that include that we make this decision tonight?
So you have to have the public hearing within a certain time frame,
Right.
but as far as making the decision,
Okay,
I'm not
fine.
aware where the statute requires that.
Okay, that's fine. Mr. Khalid, you have the floor.
All right, I mean, because I'm asking, I thought that we were deciding, I thought that we would make the final vote on the 24th, because it sounds like there are going to be some more changes by the end of this meeting, so I'm not sure how we're going to actually execute a vote. But it sounds like you guys have something you want to say about the vote.
Yeah, so there are a couple of options. I think the first thing is very similar to what you did last year. All of your adjustments, you would make them. And then once you make your adjustments, you would authorize the passing of the budget. At that point in time, the CFO's office would take all of your changes, same as last year, send you the recap of all of those changes, and send you that final budget that you adopted, and you're done. But, yes ma'am, I'm sorry. Oh, but if you do not pass the budget within those parameters, then you have to operate off of the budget that you had last year.
Okay, I just want to be clear, because this is a very different meeting if speak now or forever hold your peace. We're making all the changes tonight versus we're going to get some more feedback and make the changes on Tuesday. It also is going to be a longer meeting. But so my second question is, you said in your presentation that we had this $10 million surplus.
So your $10 million is what you're carrying forward. So in the last presentation by the CFO, what he showed you is your cash reserves, and your cash reserves is that $10 million.
So
you continue to have expense. I'm sorry, CFO is going to speak to it.
yeah, and let me just ask if you can tailor your answer to this. What I'm confused about is that last week we had a $9 million deficit, and then today I heard we had a $10 million surplus. So just help me do that.
Well, no, so, and let me
Yes,
answer
go
that,
ahead.
because this question is to me. So you don't have a $10 million surplus. What you have done is you have $10 million cash reserve. So you hear the mayor say it all the time, we don't have a money problem, we don't have a cash problem, we have a cash flow problem. And so what is happening, very similar if you're at home and you got credit cards and you've got $10,000 in credit card debt, but you make $3,000 a month. That $10,000 is there and you service your debt. So you pay debt service on a monthly basis, but you have cash reserves that you pay your bills with. And so what you have and what has been exemplified in all of the presentations is that your revenues were projected at, let's say, 70 million, but you only brought in 60. But your expenses were at 70 million, but you only spent 40. As such, you have cash reserves by which you pay your debt.
So,
and bills.
Do we still have a $9 million deficit for our general fund?
You do not. On paper.
Can I answer that?
Yeah, please.
We do not have $10 million in reserve. What we have is in 2019 budget. We have revenue, we have expenses. We have received more revenue than expenses. However, as we go towards the end of the fiscal year, revenues start slowing down because we receive revenues, the majority of revenues is tax. We received them at one time. It's there, it's in the bank. Revenues, they go up. Expenses, they go up. We have expenses until we get into the first week of October. Still, we'll be talking about expenses of 2019 because we have the whole 2 weeks payroll in October. Will be paid in September, will be paid in October. So revenues, that's cash flow. We have more revenues. That, remember, that was the report for July. August, that 10 million may not be the same. Come September, that 10 million may not be even there. That's why we projected it, that at the end of it we will have 871. That last time we were talking about. And that 871 surplus from the 10 million may not be even there. depending on how much we have spent. The $7 million fund balance deficit is still there.
Thank you.
It's still there. That's the one we say if we reserve now, put aside $1.5 million, we will reduce that one to 6.2 in this fiscal year.
Okay, yeah, thank you. I mean, because I think when we use words, no disrespect, but I think when we use words like surplus and reserves, you know, it makes people think, well, if we have all this in reserves, then let's just use it to pay this $7 million negative fund balance. And so we still have this $7 million negative fund balance.
Correct. If you adopt this budget as it is, it will be $6.2 million.
It'll be $6.2 million.
Because we have the $1.5 million in reserve, and $1 million we are putting in contingency of the case of anything. I think the city manager would also mention that will be, you can allocate it anywhere else you want.
Okay, so two more things I would request. In your expenditure summary, I would like to see community development and regulatory affairs split from economic development. I don't think that they are the same. I think that we need to be clear about how much we are spending on economic development versus how much we are spending on regulating what is already developed. So they're separate here, but on that, what I'm saying is on that summary, I would just like to see them separate. And then secondly, I would like to see, because we have a lot of contractors, and there's been a lot of concern about contractors, if we could have some sort of appendix that lists all of the contractors that we have in the city and how much each one of them is being paid. So we have this $12 million budget for public works, but most of public works is Jacobs. So I'm wondering how much of that $12 million are we just giving to Jacobs? And I would just like to see that separated out for Charles Abbott, even though they perform greatly. I think it would just be great for our residents to be able to see, here are all our contractors and here's how much we pay each one of them. It might also be helpful for other contractors who might want to compete for more efficient, lower cost services, for them to be able to clearly see that.
I think there was one council member asked for the contractors about 2-3 months we gave, and who updated them again. Just for Jacobs, it's about $6.3 million.
Right, but again, just as an appendix, if we can just have them all listed.
So, City Manager, I would like everything we're saying here today that needs to be incorporated in this budget, and to conclude what you make here in the public hearing, so that we bring a product back that we don't have to rehash. You know, those things. So I want to put that out there. At this time, I'm going to let Mr. Baker and I'm closing Mr. Gumbs because we must move forward.
Okay, for the sake of time, I know earlier, that's how long it's been on the list, not to bring everybody so far back, but Councilwoman Gilliard requested that we go into executive session in reference to our litigation budget. However, Mr. Malazi just advised us that we have $1.5 million in contingency. So if we're going to, I mean, we don't have to just walk backwards by going to the back, leaving people out here not knowing what's going on. I believe that the responsible thing to do is just say, we have $1.5 million in contingency. If we need more money in that line item for litigation, we'll just pull it from the contingency. And so that way we won't have to go to that executive session.
I think we need to cut.
Go ahead, Mr. Baker.
Okay. Also, while you're still up and Khalid asked his question, Councilman Khalid asked his question, I want to know, based off what you just advised, do you foresee us taking a tax anticipation note for the next 3 months, possibly? Even though we have to pay it back by December 31st, would it be wise, and if we do have to do so, what would be the repercussions, given that it would probably be only interest on 2 or 3 months?
If we were to pass the budget as quickly as possible, the more you delay, that means URA cannot go ahead. So URA is the saving of expenses. So the more you take to pass the budget, of course you can't pass it beyond October 1. You have to have the budget in place. So the more you take you are able to take about 60 months. And the little we have, already authorized, I can borrow money. I am putting aside to save those interests. So whatever we have internally may be exhausted, then we'll go out and borrow money for time, for 1 month or 2 months. Maybe, if it's not enough what we have.
Well, Mr. Baker, that's a little bit better because it was first, it was not at all. To make it sound better.
Well, that was the last meeting, and I just think that I think that we may have missed what the city manager said as far as last year during the budget process. We advised our changes, and then they compiled everything that was said to be our changes, and it was published.
Right.
So I don't think that we have to hold this out and keep going. This is our third meeting, and it's what's required by law, and I believe that we all know where we are, and it seems like all of the radical changes have clearly been made tonight. So, I mean, I believe many of the radical changes that were contentious, at least, were made tonight. So we should just consider that as opposed to lingering it on and moving forward. Are you?
Don't forget that we are required to publish. So it was published that today you will have public hearing and there will be an adoption of it. So if you do anything beyond the requirements of publicizing, we will get going.
We're not going to do that. We're not
I
going to do
can't
that. So
go
I'll get you. Here's Mr. Baker, then we're going to have Ms. Gomes, then we're going to close the discussion out with Ms. Willis, but I can go into public hearing.
I'm clear.
Okay, Ms. Gomes?
So that was one of my main questions. This has been probably the most arduous budget process I've ever been through in my life. And I think we missed a lot of key pieces, which is probably a lot of the public input. It alarms me that no one really is explaining about the budget process, because a lot of people that's in here are very confused. And why they're not really having the opportunity to say what they need to say about the budget. So for me, I'm just trying to, somebody mentioned having this on hold. Why would we hold it when it was advertised as a final adoption, a final public hearing and an adoption? Are you saying that that's legal if it is held?
Yeah, so the statute, I pulled up the code section. You have no limitation in your code of ordinances, but the state statute says that nothing in this code section shall be deemed to preclude the conduct of further budget hearings if the government body deems hearings necessary and complies with the requirements of subsection E. So that means subsection E just means that you would have to republish it and have at least a week period between the adoption. So if you postpone today, you'll have to wait at least a week before you can hear it again.
So, and also too, I think when budgets are not voted on and I guess they fail, what happens in that process? Because I've seen some cities where the budget has not passed, they didn't have enough votes to pass it. So what's the next? You still gotta wait again?
Well, you would be under the past year budget until you do approve a budget, but the obligation would be on the council to have that next hearing or to have supplemental public hearings until you are able to pass a budget.
Okay. I just want to make a suggestion. I believe maybe next year, so this process is not as complicated, that we do more budget workshops that allow for public input. All the other cities are still doing it. I'm not sure why we kind of, diverted that process, but I think that we need some more, even if it's, each council person hosting a budget workshop in their respective districts or however the case may be. But I think this is confusing, it's convoluted, and it's just a mess. I wasn't for everyone, but I'll give it.
No, I was good.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I concur with everything.
Councilman said last year we did have budget workshops in districts, but we also had city, we also had a CFO roll up to the city manager role, so he led that process. This has been very confusing. When we have gone through 10 different edits of this budget, and I think for us to be receiving a edited budget the day of and still
it's, having the lack of information we need, is unacceptable, and we must do better next year.
All right, Mr. Ferguson, for those who came in late, would you explain the procedure for the public hearing?
I feel like nothing should be voted on, the budget is just being given out.
Okay, you have an opportunity to come in.
We're at the public comment section of the meeting. I have received 12 speakers cards. If you do wish to speak, please fill out a card and submit it to me. You will be permitted 2 minutes to make your comments regarding the budget. We will keep time here. Once it concludes the 2 minutes, we ask that you please release the podium for the next speaker. With that, Mr. Mayor, I can call the first names if you're ready.
I'll open the public hearing.
Okay, the first 3 speakers, if you would come around. I know it's kind of tight in here, and in fact, I'll move the podium up a little bit. First 3 speakers are Rod Williams, Michael Johnson, Jose Bright. Will you please line up in the center right here? First 3 speakers. Rod Williams, Michael Johnson, Jose Bright, John Johnson.
Mr. Williams passes.
Mr. Williams passes. Michael Johnson, Jose Bright, Don Johnson, then Joyce Jones. Please approach the podium, 2 minutes.
Can you make sure you explain where they're from?
Yes, I'm sorry. Please state your name, address, and the district that you're in if you know it.
Michael T. Johnson Sr., 544 Southwest, Landers 1. I'm a major situation. My fellow councilman, my thing is the public works contracts. Councilman, I don't want to mess up your name, please.
Just Councilman.
He brought up my concern about contracts in the public works. Giving $12 million to one contractor in such a small city brings up some questions for me. And whoever does your procurement, have y'all considered blanket purchase agreements to where contractors can come together on one contract and they can hash it out? Money's already settled. And I come from experience, GS13, I started the first contracting office for the Corps of Engineers. First one they ever had. So from experience, I think there's better ways. To give someone $12 million, what else is under there? Where's the subcontractors? Where's the minorities? So my thing is, have you considered other than what you've done concerning contracts and make it more transparent and put online where we can go right to it and know who's what and what they have in and so forth? Because there's so many more better ways than what I see here.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Good to see you all again. And I might sound a little repetitive, but I'm just going to go ahead and share a few things for you to consider as you put together a final budget.
Excuse me, sir. Can you say your name?
I'm Jose Bright. I'm a resident of District 4. Well, I'm happy to hear that you're trying to balance the budget compared to last week. But this fund balance is critical to maintain a city without a deficit. I'm a little concerned that according to a Washington Post article, August 19th, most economists believe that we're headed for a recession. And I don't think our budget conversations right now are being proactive enough. Secondly, we got to do a better job controlling our spending. I've had some conversations with some folk in the civil service of the city, and consultants are hired, and they're being paid beyond contract price. So we need to have more control mechanisms in place for our consultants. And should we need to borrow funds, I'm really concerned about our credit rating, what kind of interest we're going to have to pay on the money. Moreover, I think we need more deeper cuts given the times we're facing right now. And I think we need to look at professional service contracts, because that's where the fluff is in my perspective. And then I want to leave you with one thing. I moved to this city to retire. Now, I can easily go anywhere in the world, but I would like to stay here. I do not want you to increase my property taxes. And a lot of the people in this room are seniors, and we can't afford for you to increase our property taxes because you're making some really unreasonable expenses. Thank you.
Thank you.
He pretty much said what I was going to say. I'm a senior. My name is George Jones. I'm in District 1. And I wanted to say that, for one thing, in senior, first I thought I was living in South Atlanta. Then I found out I was in South Florida. But one thing I want to say that most of the citizens are senior citizens. We don't know much about emails and faxes and all that. So I think there should be a better communication with the seniors than with emails and faxes, so that we will know what's going on. Because we don't know how to read or go by, do or get emails and faxes. So I think y'all should have a better communication system with us than by emails and faxes. And another thing, I think that you all should do a better job with communicating with us. And for us, this budget that you all have put out, I think y'all should just completely just totally tear it up, because you all cannot come together with it and start all over again and make up a new budget, because you all do not have it together, because it's too many ups and downs with it until y'all come up with a reasonable budget that will not go up, not allow our taxes to go up, because the way it is now with this budget, our taxes is going to go up. And for one thing, I hope this street of New Hope, this roundabout, I hope y'all don't end up giving this, the guy that bought this land, I truly hope y'all don't give him the okay to put a strip mall on at the end of New Hope, personally. This is just something, I'm just adding that to it. So, I'm just adding that to it. But I just want to thank y'all. And, but anyway, I just hope that y'all start it over with a new budget, so that we all can work together and have it, so that we all can come up with an agreement on something that we all be happy with. And the seniors will not have to be moving out of their homes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next three speakers, Don Johnson, Pamela Harris, Andon Francis, and then Mathis Colquitt.
Good evening, Council. My name is Don Johnson. And I was asked to identify my district. My first question is, I don't know what district I'm in. I'm on Loch Lomond Trail, but according to your GIS map, Loch Lomond is not in the city of South. One part of it is, one part of it is not. So I don't know whether I'm a member of the city of South Fulton or whether I'm a member of the city. And that's a ongoing problem there in itself. And I had some reservations, and I expressed it earlier on the meeting, about joining the city of South Fulton, because a city requires a large tax base in order to sustain itself. This city, to me, is questionable because for a couple of reasons. There's not enough commercial to support the city. If you don't have commercial, everything's going to be the rest of the tax base is going to be placed on the residents. And I don't see how it's possible for residents to support the city. This area has a lot of vacant land, and the reason it's vacant because nobody wants to develop it in the south part of the county. That's going to be a problem going forward. So I don't really see how it's possible to start off by increasing salaries when you don't know what your budget's going to be for the year. That seems like a backwards way to start the city off. In this, now I don't know where I am, but on Loch Lomond Trail, my wife went around, was taking pictures of trash on the street. In order to maintain the city, you got to be able to do something about removing the trash, because if you don't remove the trash, the neighborhood's going to deteriorate.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Pamela Harris. I reside in District 1 in the city of South Fulton. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge our CFO, Frank Malaz. I think that you've done a good job based on the information that's been given to you. On the last meeting, September 10th, I attempted to ask a question, but I had not filled out a card. And the reason that I wanted to ask a question, it was concerning an $11 million outsourced contract. What I recall Ms. Willis stating is that we chose Jacob Contractors. Now, my question is, what is the process of procurement as it relates to awarding and outsourcing contracts? And if there is any minority participation, who has the authority to procure contracts as well as negotiate? And is there a process in place where minority contractors can compete with other contractors, or do they have an opportunity to compete? I would like to make sure that minority contractors that have been given an opportunity have one, that have not been given the opportunity. Also, it has been brought to my attention that the city of South Fulton has no savings. And I'm thinking about national emergencies, national disasters, and such. Are you considering addressing those issues? We're a new city with endless possibilities, and I'm certain that we are all on a learning curve. What has gotten me so involved in a community awareness is I'm a senior citizen, and I have a heart of compassion for my fellow man, and am concerned about excessive taxing after reviewing the proposed budget. Most of us in this room were raised by a village, and I believe that it is time to return to those core principles and beliefs that were instilled in us. Thank you so much. And I have a copy if you'd like to add this to your minutes.
You would get from me. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Harris.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Alan Francis. I reside in District 1. And I believe we are a bit clearer on some of the components in the budget prior to coming here today. But I will piggyback on what someone said earlier. We need a clearer education process for the citizens. We should be involved ongoing prior to the hearings in this format. Much more informal setting where we can understand what goes into the budget and how it affects us directly. But I want to particularly ask, what process is in place to audit the spending? And are there internal, external auditors? And will the public be privy to where we are in terms of actual spending versus budgeted spending at different times of the year? Rather than wait until next year and we learn we're over budget, on the budget, we'd like to be able to understand the different milestones and what's being done to rein overspending if that's the case. First, so I really think we're entitled to an answer on that. And then it appears to me that there are two major objectives here. One is to remove that $7 million number, and the other is to increase our reserve, because I think $2.6 million reserve, the 1.1 plus the 1. It's not significant. And God forbid we have a major emergency in a huge snowstorm. We don't want to have our taxes raised next year to be able to cover the costs, the unexpected costs. So I think those objectives should be stressed strongly. And I'm suggesting, for instance, looking at creative ways of raising revenue, not just cutting costs. For instance, interest rates went down twice this year. What's about refinancing our debt to lower debt service? I'm in the real estate business, and when interest rates go down, that's the first thing I look. How can I refinance my property? So I believe that should be a first objective for the finance department to see how can we cut costs, and it can happen throughout the year. Each time the Fed's lower interest rate, look and see what's our debt service within this time. Are we paying higher rates than what would be market rates?
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay, the next speakers are Mathis Colquitt. I think I saw him leave out. Marcia Powell, Mary McNair, Joel Johnson, Leola Summers. Those are the next four. Marcia Powell, Mary McNair, Joel Johnson, and Leola Summers.
Okay, I just have a question. This council and mayor been raised? Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I'm Marcia Powell, I'm in District 1, Montclair Estates. I would like to know if the council and the mayor received a raise, did you all vote for a raise? And could you tell me what percentage that you all asked for?
Go ahead.
So this is it right here? Oh, they went from, and what was it before? So how much percentage increase was that? That's what I wanted to know.
Answer the question.
What percentage increase was it?
Do you want one of us to answer?
He just answered it.
What was it? 100%. You all think that's feasible for just being a city for 2 years? Yes. Can you tell why? Tell me why?
I can tell you why.
Okay.
It's 7:30 on Tuesday. We'll probably be here till 9 o'clock.
Well,
so I think $27,000, which when you divide that out, is a livable wage of about $15 an hour. I think that we do $15 an hour.
I agree with you. Do you think when you took this job on, it wasn't going to be as difficult as it is?
I didn't
Is
think
that be part of it?
I think that no one did. I hear residents say often they didn't know how difficult it was going to be. I'm a resident as well. I didn't know how difficult it was.
You think maybe we should wait another year or so until we get all this squared away before we get that much of an increase?
No.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, I wish I could, ma'am, but I can't continue to serve multiple nights a week and not have another job. Like, I only make $13,000 a year doing this job, and so I can't.
Okay.
But when you start a new city, you know it's going to be overwhelming.
Let me explain this to you all and the people up here. This is public comment. This is not a debate. Say what you want to say and we adhere to it.
My name is Mary McNair. I'm in District 1, and my basic question was regarding what would happen as far as our taxes are concerned. Most of us in this room are senior citizens, and we did not retire to start to go back to work in order to pay the bills that we're paying into our homes. And I love where I live. I'd love to stay there and continue to grow older there. But at the rate that things seem to be going, that may be an issue for us as we continue to live there. So that was my comment and no questions. Thank you.
Yeah, man, I was a point of order, Mr.
Let
Mayor.
me talk to him first. He asked that question.
Yeah, so Mayor, I know that it's public comment and we just received info, but I think it would probably behoove us to inform the public about the millage rate, because I think there is a misconception that taxes would be raised based on the budget, but the council actually made a decision a couple of months ago to keep the millage rate the same for the third consecutive year, so there is no increase in taxes. I'm sorry, and the millage rate is the formula by which your taxes are paid. And so before the city was actually incorporated, you had the same millage rate, but it was split between Fulton County and the city of South Fulton. Right now, that millage rate is fully collected by the city of South Fulton, but it's the same. It was and the same last year and the year before. It's not changed in the 3 years. And there has been, I apologize, there's also been a homestead exemption that has passed as well through the Georgia General Assembly, which your council actually advocated for with the South Fulton delegation. And so it is also in effect for the city of South Fulton as well.
And the other thing I think you have to talk about also, Mr. Manager, is that the appraisal went up. So we kept our military the same, but when you're talking about applying that military to a higher estimated value of the home, it will look like you got taxes.
And for over a decade.
And that's not on us. That comes from the appraisal from Fulton County. You know, and so we have to we're at their mercy as to what they do. Now you can go in and you can appeal your appraisal. That's the process you have to negotiate with the county. That's too big now.
Yes, so I think it just behooves, Mayor, if people don't understand that process. For 10 years, your taxes there was a rollback by the county in relation to your property taxes. And I think last year, am I correct, Mayor, for the first time, they adjusted that? And so that is the reason why the council advocated for the new homestead exemption for the city of South Fulton, while others benefited as well. And so in taking on that homestead exemption, you should see those reductions in your taxes. But the city of South Fulton has not raised the millage, has not adjusted the millage rate up over the past 3 years.
Okay. Ms. Johnson, go ahead.
Jewel Johnson, District 1. First of all, I'd like to say, since we've been a city, our CFO has been with us since then, and in my opinion, and others, after speaking to many people in all of the city of South Fulton, I'm all over, and I speak to people all the time. And the only thing I've heard was nothing but praise for him. And I just want to say thank you, Mr. Wine, for being with us. It's been hard. You have an awesome job. And I want to say to everyone here, because sometimes we tend to forget our role. The role of the mayor and council, they are our employees, and we are their employers. So I'm going to urge mayor and council to please listen to your employers' concern. They're saying they want you to go back and cut more because we don't have enough in our fund balance if there is a disaster. As it relates to the taxes, thank you, Mr. Donald, for sharing about the taxes. But the reason the people are concerned is because they're trying to tell you, should you move forward with this budget the way it is, you at some point going to come back to us. And you're going to say, we can't do this and we can't do that, and we're going to have to raise taxes, and we're just going to have to look at the real picture. We're going to have to cut what we have to cut, and we're going to have to slow it down no matter what we want. We've only been a city for 2 years, folks. Everybody wants this, that, and other for their district. The city manager wants his thing. I'm saying, slow down. What we got to do is the right thing and listen to your employers, because you are employees.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Edwards, and all the council people. My name is Leola Summers, and I'm in District 1. And really, everybody said, what mine is. I really just, at this point, just want to say thank you to the council people. This is my first time not coming to a meeting, but to this new city council meeting. And I myself really like to hear the interactions, even when it may not all be positive. I think everybody needs to say what they need to say. That's how you keep a group honest.
and to the city manager, and also to the CFO. I've enjoyed listening to what you all said. It doesn't mean I agree with everything, but I like that interaction. Interaction is what, like I say, keeps people on the right track. And thank you.
You're welcome.
The last speaker for this evening is Ms. Linda Allen. Linda Allen.
Then I thought you would leave.
I know, I couldn't figure out how to get around it. Hi, thank you. My name is Linda Allen. I'm also the Vice President of San Antonio Community Association. And I want to bring up the salary once again. Okay. I want to approach the salary issue once again. This is a big deal. I work for the federal government. As federal and state and county workers, we are public servants. We don't make a big salary. We actually do it because we want to see the public good. So you sacrifice these things. Now, you guys, the 7 council members are going up to $90,000 right now. That's $630,000 more that we're going to have to pay out. Now, in order to earn a $90,000 salary in the federal government, the only person on this panel that would deserve it is Dr. Foster Rao, because she has a PhD. In the federal government, a GS-12, step 5 to 6, is $90,000. Mayor Edwards, a GS-15 at $145,000 is step 4 to 5. So your steps are based on every year of service that you go through. So in order to be at a GS-12, GS-15, you have to have a PhD. How many of you here have a bachelor's degree? Good. Master's is a GS-9. Master's is a minimum 53,000. And that's including your locality tax. So 90,000 is not justifiable, these folks, for anybody in public service.
I'm sorry. I was elected to handle this meeting, which y'all be food right now.
Mr. Mayor, there was one other speaker who just came into the room.
Before we do that, I'm going to allow the city manager to make a record, but please do not shout out. We will get everybody in that needs to be in. You want to make a comment?
I think I would take some direction from the council, but I think a lot of these messages are probably a little bit misconstrued. So no council member will be making $90,000. So I think the council salary goes up to $27,000, and the fringe, the benefits for the council are included in our. You said what now? So you're looking at the form, and so what you're looking at is all included on page 10. It's all included because it's their total budget. That is not their salary. That is the aide and the council member. And so that combination is a 2-person salary. I'd also say that while it's great to use federal government as a benchmark for salaries in the civil service, local municipalities operate very differently. And so these quote-unquote staff members are actually elected officials, and their category would not align with the MS level in any way. The numbers are quite different, and the pieces that you're looking at aren't quite apples to apples. And I wouldn't want anybody to think that our elected officials are making $90,000 a piece, because they are not. That number is not correct. And so it's actually $27,000.
27.
27, and so the remaining amount goes to?
Actually, it's the registration. At 4 employees, they get about 56. 56 plus 27 for elected officials is the 80 something up to 90. So it's the registration that are working for them that are making up to $56,000. Who are just employees like others.
So, for instance, Mark Baker has 4 employees that work on
One.
one employee.
So that employee is about 50-something thousand. Plus he's 20-something employee. He has got 1 employee.
So I think for clarity.
50 something, and that's a part-time job.
No, full-time. Those are full-time. Those employees are full-time, so you have 7 registration. If one of them, full-time all the employees, they have full benefits.
Okay, listen, we can't all talk at one time. This is a tight room, and we want everybody to get Mr. Malazzi, go ahead.
I think just the insight, when you look at the way our government works, you have part-time officials who are required to operate full-time offices. And so these officials create legislation, provide constituent services, et cetera, et cetera. They coordinate all of those activities through their offices. As such, when you look at that total dollar amount, that is for all of the personnel associated with their office. So when you call the office after hours, and many times you're reaching our council members directly, but their constituent services are coordinated by those staff. There's also quite a bit, I mean, if you look in all of the newspapers, the one thing that the city of South Fulton always gets credit for is positive progressive legislation. They're not doing that on their own. While they are coming up with these big ideas, they have subject matter experts assigned to their offices that do the research, that coordinate the first drafts, and line all of those things up so that our city attorney's office can produce the legislation on their behalf. So it's not just simply elected officials running around glad-handed and shaking hands. We have the type of government where it is a full, responsive government in delivering the governance of the city. So the other portion of it is we've been ranked the #1 for customer outreach and engagement. That's also because of our elected officials and the things that they put in place around these 24-hour hotlines and the applications and the town hall that they have every month. Those activities are what you're getting for that line.
We have one speaker.
Yes, Mathis Colquitt just came into the room.
Hey, Mathis Colquitt. On campus this past weekend, a lot of people Cascade Hills, they have a question wanted me to ask about speed bumps on that main street leaving on Cascade. And they mentioned they had calls several times, and while I was there, I witnessed like several people running the traffic light. So I want to know if the budget doesn't include speed bumps or any type of traffic programs to slow the traffic down.
Yes, sir. So it's approximately $17 million in transportation-related projects included in the budget, and many of those actually go above T-Splots. Another area that's probably good for the public to know is that we were pretty much abandoned on our federal projects that Fulton County began. And so since the inception of the city, they have not continued those projects. They have the position that now is the city's responsibility. So in this budget, a healthy portion, and I know that I heard it's $12 million related to public works. That's not the Jacobs contract. And so that contract is about $6 million. A large portion of those funds actually go towards these projects that you talked about. Our Old National Corridor, the 5, 6, and 7 council members have advocated to take on those sidewalk projects that have been left behind for a very long time. In districts 1 through 4, you'll see a variety of transportation improvements, whether it be roundabouts, speed bumps, traffic studies, to make sure I know many of you are from the HOAs and you don't like all the speeding through your communities. is required by the city to hold traffic studies. Last year, we budgeted 25, but we got actually implemented 75. We adjusted the budget to do more of that. And so a lot of those, that $17 million takes care of all of those things. So it's not just the actual contract, it's the work and the materials and those activities. So I just didn't want you to have misconceptions about those things. And so we hear you loud and clear that it's better for us to do these budget town halls and education. And so, man, I don't want to step out on the limb, but I would say once this budget is passed, what the city manager's office can do in conjunction with the council is go out and educate people about what's in the budget and what type of projects you should see.
All right, at this time, I'm going to close the public hearing. First of all, let me say this. I want to thank each one of you for being here tonight. It's very important that you're here, because I heard a lot of things. A lot of it had to do with communication, and communication is key. As a result of that, Mr. Manager, I would like to have some of these critical questions that were answered by people. We have record of their address and stuff, that we send them a written explanation, you know, for each and every one of them to try to ask something. Is that all right with you? And so I hear, as for the seniors, you see, I believe in what you believe. We all seniors, so I can't acknowledge you now.
I was just going to say, just put all the questions and answers online, so we can all see.
Well, no, that's not what somebody said. Somebody said, you know, I remember, and I served with him down there for 14 years, and I remember him saying that sometimes you got to buy some things. Right. So I'm just saying to you that sometimes we have to buy some things. It's just the way it goes. Those who will put something online, sir, but those who can. But I think we need to identify. We'll do both. We identify. Yeah. That's a very important. That was a very important piece there. We're going to say, we're going to let Mrs. Young speak, and then we're going to. Is there any Go ahead.
I wanted to address, I believe, Mr. Francis in regards to the contract. We have, as a city, probably have done a poor job of educating you all about OpenGov, but a lot of this information as far as where the money is going is online. So our clerk has pulled up the information. It is on the website to see where the expenditures have been paid out, and you can also see the contractors as well. So as you can see right here, this is what things are and where each budget, and it also gives you a breakdown of everything. So if you have time, I think that would be a good way to also start with finding out where the expenses are going. So again, like I said, we haven't done the best job yet because it's still working out some tweaks, but OpenGov is available, it is transparent, and you have all the information right there.
Hey, Ms. Willis. Yeah,
are those the current ones? Because the last time I looked, they were not current.
How current? When the last time you looked at it, they usually about 30 days. There's a cycle in about 30 days, I believe.
As long as they're a current contract so we can actually see it, then that's fine.
Okay, Ms.
As far as the procurement process goes, there is no contract that has been awarded in the city that has not gone through a procurement process that is over a certain amount. That is illegal. So if anybody has a contract and has not gone through the procurement process, somebody can go to jail. And nobody has done that in the city of South Fulton. And as far as the minority contracts go, we can't award anybody we cannot give minorities any preference until we go through a disparity study. And we have not gone, this city has not had a disparity study. And so we cannot give preference to MB, and that is my legislation, and a disparity study will cost about $300,000. And so until we can get to the point we can afford a disparity study, we cannot establish an MBE program.
I'm going down the line.
How is it supposed
Excuse me, I'm going down the line. Mr. Lee, you all right?
No, I do want to say something.
Go ahead.
your taxes are going to go up, your property taxes are going to go up. Because the value of your homes are going to go up. Everything that is in this budget is something that our constituents have asked for. Paved streets, street lights, more yard cutting, more trash pickup, or police. And so I know that politicians, I know that some people will lie to you and tell you that you can get more for nothing. But everything costs something. And the city of South Fulton still has some of the lowest home values and some of the lowest property taxes out of every city in Metro Atlanta. You can move somewhere else. You can move to Chattahoochee Hills, you can move to Alpharetta, you can move to Sandy Springs, and you will pay $300,000 for the same $150,000 house. And you'll pay the property taxes that go along with that. So I don't like to play with you about stuff like that. City services cost money, and I will always tell my constituents, you can have whatever you're willing to pay for. We do have a problem where 85% of our city is zoned residential or agricultural, and we need to work on that. And I think that is something that we're doing with the DDA that I proposed, with the DA that is available now, and you're going to see those things. But I don't want people to, I'm not going to sit there and lie and say that we can get something.
Okay, Mr. Baker? Okay, any motion?
So my question, the motion, he said, what motion? I'm asking what motion, Mayor, what you made?
The motion will be to adopt the budget, to pass the budget. With the adjustments as amended.
I move that we pass the 2020, the fiscal year 2020 budget with adjustments, with the amendments and adjustments requested.
Properly moved, second. Any discussion?
I have discussion. Is the disparity study from the city manager or whoever, is the disparity study not in this budget?
It is.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Ms. Gunn.
And we have, how much, just so I'm clear, we have a 1.5 in reserve?
We have put aside $2.6 million.
$1 million in contingency?
$1 million in contingency and $1.5 million in reserve. 1.6 in reserve, 1.6 in reserve, 1 million in contingency, for a total of $2.6 million. Last year, 2019, we put $100,000. So we have moved from $100,000 to $2.6 million.
That part of the contingency could be used for the return for the money that's needed.
So that's the discussion we had with the city manager to say, here's the money, should we need it will move there. So that one is the discussion already made, the city manager.
Take a budget, and put it in the direct,
right,
which is why I put it in there.
Well, we'll do it from the beginning and Mr. Brown.
Yeah, I mean, it's more so for the kick. I just want the people of Old National to know that the sidewalks are included in the budget. I know I get a text, I can't respond while I'm over here, but I just want to say it out loud for those because that's going to be 5 people in this room.
Have accepted the building in this budget.
But that too, but especially the sidewalks, Mr. Jill.
Okay, we got it. Thank you. All right, let's vote, please.
What are y'all voting on? Y'all can still vote on a budget that y'all have not even.
Look.
Excuse me, ma'am, the motion is on the floor, so they're going to move on before I have to carry it out. Let's go.
Nay.
Okay, we have, excuse me, let me get it right, we have passed the budget, we have 2 days, right? Mrs. Gilliard and Mrs. Gunn, 3.
So it's 3-3, so Mayor, you need to vote for the first time in history. 3-3, Mayor, so you get to vote for the first time in history.
I'll vote now.
Yes, thank you. Yes.
Passes 4-3.
Y'all hear that? The mayor said he votes yes. Everybody hear that?
Y'all remember that when it's time for us to vote for the mayor of this house? Y'all forget that. All the people in our neighborhood, y'all remember who's up there and who's
Well, I'm gonna say this. Y'all sitting down here to make a decision. I believe that I got 10 decisions to make. I'm gonna make all, excuse me. I believe if I got 10 decisions to make, I'm gonna make all 10. All of them may not be good, but you can't say I didn't make it. And so that's why I'm today, and that's why I've always been. I've been that way when I was Fulton County Commissioner, and I continue to do that today. And so those who want to vote me out, believe me, I was all right before I came. All right, so thank you so much. All right, any other business?
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
I was going to second.
We didn't get any food, so you can't leave my home. I'm here to